enter the kitchen. "Smells good," she said, sniffing deeply. "What is it?" "Greek phyllo vegetarian pizza with seasonal greens," Beth answered. Ever since she started cooking school, she talked like a menu. Stanifish would have scoffed, saying that unless meat was present, large bloody chunks of it, it wasn't a meal. But in this house, you ate what you were served, and, to be fair, Stan would have eaten it too, because he was madly in love with Beth. But afterwards, he would have raced directly to the nearest burger joint. "Whereas, she," I said carefully. The teapot and cup were gone, leaving no trace of her. "In her room, reading," Mum answered. "Did you have a chance to chat with her?" "Oh, sure. After school we chatted." Mum looked suspicious. "She'll take a while to adjust, I guess." I nodded, stuffing down one of Beth's biscuits, hot from the oven. "It would take more than a few weeks to adjust to us." "Try some of the papaya spread," Beth insisted. "No, thanks," I said with my mouth full. Even I had my limits. Suddenly the door flew open, and I knew without looking that Mad had arrived. Madeline, Mad, the younger by 20 minutes, of the twins, never came into a room. She made an entrance. She was wearing her second-hand black cashmere cape draped around her shoulders. As she closed the door behind her, she pulled the cape off, flinging it across a nearby chair so the red satin lining provided a perfect throne for her to perch upon. "It's unbearably cold out there," she breathed into her hands. "Unbearably." Then, "What's for supper, Beth?" This was said in her regular voice. "Greek phyllo vegetarian pizza with seasonal greens," Beth answered. "Sounds heavenly. Guess what, everyone?" Mad paused meaningfully. All her pauses were meaningful. "I think I have a shot at the commercial." There was a squeal of excitement from Beth. I managed to contain mine. Mad's been trying out for plays, commercials, movies, you name it, ever since I can remember. Sometimes she even snagged a part. "Excellent. What's the part?" Mum asked. "It's only a commercial, but it would be a foot in the door. She should be a centipede for all the feet she'd had indoors over the years." "What's the part?" I asked, moderately curious. "Well, let me set it up for you. It's the dead of winter. It's cold." "Unbearingly cold, I guess?" She frowned, shaking her head slightly. "Everyone's ill. Colds, influenza, strep throat. Oh, it's said at a pharmacy. I'd be hacking cough, desperately in need of relief." She stood, and her cape slid to the floor in a crumpled heap. I stumbled really, into the store and make my way to the prescription counter. She gave an agonizing bark, her face contorted with pain. "Please," I say, "don't you have something to relieve my scratchy throat?" She added another meaningful pause, and then bent to the floor to retrieve her cape. When she straightened, her voice was back to normal. "I think I really have a crack at it. You should have heard the other actors, with their pitiful ahems. I think I really impressed the casting director." "I'm sure you did," said Beth loyally. "I almost want to give you a spoonful of cough syrup right now." "How much money would you get for it?" Mum asked. She didn't like to talk much about our finances, but I knew she worried. Mad shrugged. "I'm not sure." She tore open the biscuit and dumped the papaya goop on. Good stuff, Beth. Thanks. When do you find out about the next week? You'll definitely get thanks." That's the way they spoke, as if they were on the same frequency most of the time. I think it made Joni, Miss I Feel Things, jealous sometimes, but I figured it was just a twin thing. "What's up?" Joni asked, coming into the room wearing her paint-flecked overalls. Mad reenacted her drugstore scene, only this time she laid it on even thicker. "That's great, Mad." Joni smiled. I paid attention. Joni rarely smiled. Mad caught it too. "But?" Mad waited, head tilted forward. "But nothing," Joni shrugged. Mad shook her head. "You've got that look on your face." "It's just that, well..." Joni leaned back on the heels of her boots. "Wouldn't you feel you were selling out?" I thought I heard Mum sigh. Then as she left the room, Mad's shoulders stiffened, her head poked out from her neck like a turtle's. "What do you mean?" "Well, a commercial. It's not exactly Shakespeare, is it?" I could hear Mad's quick intake of breath and Beth's backup gasp. The gauntlet had been thrown down. This could get interesting. "Besides," Joni continued, "the whole point of coughing is that it's a sign that something is wrong. So cough suppressants are really dangerous, as if they're disguising the truth. Philosophically, I'm opposed." She was entering what I called the blah 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 stage, and I could hear Mad begin to boil. I settled back to see what would happen next. As dramatic as Mad could be, She needed a script. Words weren't always her best friend. I figured it came from having a twin who always finished her sentence. Mostly she just changed inflections, turning everything into a big performance. Can't you ever be positive about one thing, Joni? Does everything have to be, I don't know, have to be... She was way behind in verbal artistry, but she might do better in technical scoring. I liked to judge these fights the way adjudicators scored my dance performances. Mad tended to be stronger in the screaming and hitting department, what I call technical portion. Joni usually excels in the artistic category, strong on verbal assault. Bite, fight, bite, I chanted under my breath. Oops, tactical error on my part. Now they had a common enemy. Shut up, they both bellowed. You guys, cool it, Beth said quietly. If I were the judge, she was the referee. That's when I noticed Aunt Frida standing in the doorway. I wondered how much she'd heard. I thought maybe she'd bawl us out or something, but she smiled and walked to the middle of the room. The little munchkin just looked at each of us. Then she came and stood beside me. Now this reminds me of Russia, when I was growing up, she said, and sat herself down at the table. Mum came back into the room just then, so I couldn't ask her what she meant. But it sort of intrigued me. What could our house and all its weirdness have in common with her life? As Beth pulled the pizza from the oven, I grabbed a couple pieces and headed for the TV to watch my dinner time shows. Not tonight, Ben, Mum called me back. I want us to have a family dinner. Family dinner? I stopped in my tracks. Since when? I returned to the table. Aunt Frida didn't talk much during dinner. Most of the girls and Mum talked around her. I think the phyllo pizza mystified her a little, and she only nibbled at it, like a rabbit on the edge of the garden. Ben, Beth said suddenly, did you make the team? I ran to Stan on my way home. I shrugged. We found out tomorrow, but I doubt it. Hey, attitude, Benjo. You gotta have faith, she said before I could finish. That's right, a positive mental attitude, said Matt, is what you need to succeed in this world. I lost track of who was saying what. I really missed my dinner in front of the TV routine. Anyone who dances like you, Benny, could do any sport you wanted. Although why you gave up dance, said Mad, I'll never know, finished Beth. He was so good, Aunt Frida, even when he was a little guy. Remember that Arabian Nights piece, Beth? That girl, what was her name? Said Mad. Kelly Robertson, supplied Beth. Yeah, Kelly Robertson. She injured her foot right in the middle of their duo and had to leave the stage. Ben didn't even blink, just finished on his own. Even improvised some stuff. He was in his own world. The crowd went crazy. Standing ovation. How old were you? Asked Mad. I grunted and slid lower in my chair. 9, Mad decided. Only 9 years old. Then a small, reedy voice joined in, and somehow I heard it above the brass band. So then, why did you stop? Aunt Frida asked. The room went quiet, and even Joni looked up from her plate for the first time. He quit, Joni said, taking her plate over to the sink. There's nothing wrong with quitting something that you've outgrown, Mum added, probably trying to be supportive. I didn't say there was anything wrong with it. Sometimes it's just too much. You give up. Stuff happens. People die or leave, and that's just the way it is, Joni said over her shoulder. We were talking about Ben's dancing. Mad looked perplexed. Joni, really? Mum interjected, rubbing her left eye. Can't we just have one simple dinner? Absolutely. Be my guest, she said, leaving the room. Mum looked embarrassed and asked Aunt Frida if she'd like some cup of tea. Aunt Frida nodded. It didn't take long for Beth and Mad to fill the kitchen with noise again, but fortunately the conversation stayed away from dance. For that I was grateful to Joni. I didn't think anybody else really understood Joni, but I did, even when I didn't want to. She'd been the one with all the questions after the funeral. Why is he in that box? Where is he now? Why isn't he coming home? Horrible questions. But more horrible still was the silence afterwards. As unprepared as we were for our dad to die, we were just as unprepared to discover that our mother didn't control the universe. My dad colored the world with his paintbrushes. He was fun and loud, and there was always a fleck of yellow or blue in his hair. He smelled like paint thinner. My mum held us together. She was the frame, narrow and solid, around our edges. None of us, especially me, expected her to fall apart, and except for that one day, she hadn't. End of chapter 3.